I'm here with Peter Horvarth now, CEO of Green Growth Brands. Peter, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Peter, congratulations on opening your 150th CBD store. Tell me about that event and what it means for the whole Green Growth Brands.
Well, it's amazing. It's like a year ago, we were, in this industry, you get to talk about your business before you have one, and that's what we were doing. And it only took 5 months from no stores, no customers to 150 shops. And we're going to be at 209 by the end of this month in front of 1 billion footsteps because we were in the best locations through our partnerships with Simon Property Group, Brookfield, Westfield, the other developers. So, and think about it, in cannabis, there's companies that have been at this for 8 to 10 years that might have 24, maybe 2.5 dozen dispensaries open. It takes forever to open dispensaries. It's not easy.
Right.
This is something we could do in months. So we're excited to be in front of all those consumers.
Sure. And as a consumer packaged goods specialist of some renown, how important is the branding and the packaging to the consumers of CBD products, which are now prolific throughout the universe? I mean, I get 5 to 7 offers to buy CBDs online every day, which of course I don't take them up on because, well, I'm in Canada, I can get it down the street. But in the United States, it's very much a consumer packaged good product.
Yeah, so our approach, we looked at what everyone else is doing. We've got a product room that I love. When people come through our office, we go into the product room, we have everybody else's product and encourage everybody, including our associates, to try it. So the way we approached it is we think the formulations have come from a nutraceutical perspective because they don't measure up to the other personal care standards that we would consider acceptable. And I've got all these people that have worked in the beauty and personal care industry for decades. So I just said to them, look, I want you to make product that can bring the benefits of CBD, but the formulation should feel good, should smell good, and should be at an incredible value. And with all these stores that we have in front of like I said, 1 billion footsteps just in these first 200 malls, we're taking a mass approach. We're like, let's make it accessible. Let's remove all the barriers to entry. Let's focus on topicals. That's the first thing, so we don't have to age restrict the interaction with our assortment. Let's make the formulations on par with a Kiehl's and a Veda, products that are selling for twice as much as we sell, and then let's give it CBD. So we're using isolate. We're using the molecule. In theory, it's an anti-inflammatory. We let our customers make the claims. We don't make claims, and we pair it with aromatherapy. So I think the approach we're taking is let's make product that's going to be mass, is priced at mass, and is accessible, and isn't in a bodega or a nutraceutical or a head shop, but is actually right in front of your favorite other brands that you shop, and you've got someone who's knowledgeable, and it's an assortment you can navigate. So one long sentence, but that's what we're doing.
Cool. In terms of the demographic of CBD consumer, is it at this point is it completely broad-based across the consumer spectrum, or is it very sort of niche at this point, and does that create complications for you from a branding perspective?
So I'm going to reveal, our learning, okay? So we were like, we're going to be all about millennials and centennials. So the idea was 35 and under, because we knew that market from American Eagle most recently. And that's usually the market people are focused on. And we thought, okay, let's make the packaging, using consumer products, their approach is to make the packaging female-friendly, because that's who's going to make the decision, but don't make it so female that men won't buy it. So we took that approach. So who do you think ended up the first customer was like a 65-year-old guy with a tool belt. And so what we're seeing is this democratic view of customers. We're not seeing an age or a gender bias. We're not seeing a demographic bias. So that's interesting to me. Now, it might change as the brands mature and as our business grows. But right now, it looks like if you go to our shops, you're going to see a sign that says CBD for all. It really is, that's our headline. It appears to be for everybody. And there are people who come to us with different problems they want to solve. Pain relief, sleep therapy, even just face care, which is just face care you don't need CBD to do, but CBD might be better.
Right.
So we're waiting to hear from our customers. What do they think of all that?
Right. I had a house guest who was using our CBD, which is throughout the house, as eye cream.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought, well, we didn't say anything, but we thought, well, this is interesting, but she's using $160 per 30 milliliter jar of eye cream. And of course, we weren't going to mention anything. But so that's my next question. How important is price to the consumer in using topicals? I mean, the spectrum of available products online seems to be in this price constriction direction.
Yeah.
Is that going to influence the mainstream consumer model at all?
Well, I don't know. Here's the hypothesis. We looked at the pricing, and we saw that we got it down to a per milligram of CBD. We're just looking at, so what's your retail price per milligram of CBD? And what we saw, people at like 40 cents, 35 cents. Some people were even higher. We're selling it at 7 cents per milligram.
Wow.
So what that means is we're inexpensive, and we're tending to put heavy dosage of CBD in our product.
Right.
And that is because we come from a world, at the best brands in the world, where you're not looking at how do I make this cheaper. You're looking at how do I make people want it more.
Right.
And if I'm happy to increase the cost to me, if it makes it less likely to take a markdown because people have got to have it.
Sure.
So the approach we've taken, you're right. If you look at everybody else, it's expensive. It doesn't need to be. So what they're getting is an incredible margin rate and not much in the way of sales. I want a ton of sales at a very healthy margin rate.
Sure.
That's the choice. It's basically sell to the masses, dine with the classes. That's the world we come from. And again, we're leaning into what we know. What our competitors know, there's lots of ways to win in this industry, and they've picked their path. We've picked one that's about mass, about value, and about efficacy and quality in the formulations. Our beauty product, our health and wellness product will stand up against health and wellness product without CBD. And we've done blind testing, and it tells us it stands up and rates at the highest level. So in addition, we put CBD in it. Wow. I think everyone else isn't really looking at it that way. They're just like, we're going to bring the benefits of CBD to the world, but they're not putting it in familiar formulations. And formulation, like it or not, we buy with our nose most often.
Interesting. How important is you're behind some of the greatest successes in consumer packaged goods, Victoria's Secret, American Eagle. How important is that experience going to be, and how will we see that reflected in your CBD branding?
Yeah, so it's important because we were with businesses that were struggling to stay relevant as consumer patterns shifted. And those two businesses, at the times I was there, did a good job. Now one of them has kind of fallen off, but American Eagle in particular, it was a teen retailer when Abercrombie and them, they were it. 10 years later, 12 years later, they figured out how to stay relevant. But part of it is customer patterning. Be close to your customer, study all your competition, and then be aware of general trends, whether it's media or entertainment. Just understand the world that your consumers live in, because your job as a merchant is to look around corners. It isn't about, in this cannabis industry, everyone's talking about key performance indicators and loyalty programs, all stuff we were all talking about in the late 80s, and so, it's like cannabis industry, stop trying to emulate the 80s and 90s, do what the best in the world are doing right now, which is they're looking around the corner trying to figure out what consumers are going to want in the next 5 years. And just because cannabis and CBD right now appear to have, endless demand, prepare yourself for the world where you have to actually compete.
Right.
And the only way you can do that is to anticipate where the world is going, regardless of your product category. So that's what we brought to our approach. In cannabis, we're looking at it as localization, farm to table, if you will. To juxtapose that, the paradox is this, wow, so you're in 200 malls. And it's like, yeah, because we have access to the distribution, because nobody has done anything fresh in terms of kiosks in the middle of the malls, and we're going to do that. And we're the first ones to be vertical and have a broad assortment. So let's leverage our relationships with the developers and just go for it. And the result that might happen, we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so this is I think this is the fourth time that the whole cannabis industry has revalued itself to the downside after extremely exuberant rises to unprecedented levels. It always seems the downside is triggered by disappointing earnings in an industry where the speculative anticipation has now converted into an expectation for actual financial performance. How does Green Growth Brands sort of look out at the next 12 and 24 months in that context?
Well, we're saying the things that you're going to hear from everybody else because they're pretty obvious, which is, when are you going to be cash flow positive? When are you no longer going to need to be funded by the markets? Obviously, as you look at WeWork and Peloton, it's on everyone's mind. in our industry and outside of our industry.
Right.
So our focus is getting to that point where we're self-sustaining, and we see it. We've only been at this a year. The CBD business was only launched in February with one shop. And so. But we see that basically in calendar 2020, we should be there. We're kind of thinking before the summer starts. That's the way we're looking. But in terms of valuations, think about I think we all were sucked into a valuation trap. Why did everybody decide to go public a year ago? And it's because it was easy money.
Right.
You could the capital was pretty inexpensive. Everybody did that. So now you got a lot of public companies that probably shouldn't be.
Right. And now they have to backfill the value.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the consolidation is going to be kind of like, as people consolidate, it's going to be like a few of these players, thank you for bailing me out. Because,
Right.
I look at some of the players out there, I was in Certera, who, a year and a half ago, I wasn't impressed with their stores, but I'm impressed with their story, which is they are private.
Right.
And they're one of the 3 businesses that have a significant footprint in Florida.
Sure.
I think that was smart versus... us and other people were in 3 states. I think we're okay because we're concentrated in 3 states. But I see people who are in 11, 12 states because somebody told them you should be in as many states as possible. In real retail, you would never have an outpost store because you can't manage it. It's hard to make it successful. So, focusing on a few states and getting some critical mass. A company like Harvest has critical mass in Arizona. We have critical mass in Nevada, and we will in Florida. I think those companies are going to have a better chance of being around,
Right.
when the markets change. So hopefully, investors, good luck.
Yeah.
If I wish I could give them advice on what to look for. Everything's cheap, but I don't know. Is it?
Well, we'll see. All right, Peter, that's a great update. We'll leave it there for now and come back to you soon. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Great.
Filthy.